You're listening to the Ballet Piano Podcast, lifting the lid on dance accompaniment.
Hello listeners and welcome to another episode of the Ballet Piano Podcast in Conversation With. My name is Chris Hobson and of course with me is Mr. Matt Gregory.
Hello listeners.
My wife Akiko Hobson.
Hello.
And this week we are on location and we are very pleased and excited to be in conversation with Miss Karen MacIver. Hello Karen.
Oh, hello everybody.
How are you, Karen?
Oh, I'm very well. Yes,
Good.
I am.
Well, first of all, we're going to let the listeners know we're up in Scotland. We're outside of Glasgow somewhere and Karen has kindly agreed to host us for this episode. So we're in your music studio, aren't we, Karen? We're in your piano shed.
Piano shed. Nice.
It's a beautiful setting. It's an absolutely gorgeous room. Thank you so much for having us up here.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Yeah.
Yes, it was the little girl next door named this the piano shed when she saw how many pianos I actually have in this room.
Because everyone has a shed at the bottom of their garden, don't they?
Of course.
But no one has a piano shed.
I keep looking out the window, which for listeners is I'm sat directly opposite Karen, and behind her is just this beautiful field.
Yeah, it's
and there's
gorgeous.
some horses around there, so I'm going to try and not get distracted like I do in our studio with the squirrel in the
Do you
tree.
see like animals there?
Oh, when
Get animals up to the window.
Oh, the horses come up to the window.
Oh.
So yeah, you'll enjoy
Nice.
that.
I don't know how you get any work done. I would get so distracted. Anyway, we're not here to talk about animals. We are here to talk about Karen and Karen's amazing career. So, Karen,
Aw.
how did it start with you becoming a ballet pianist?
Oh, I think I'm going to be very similar to a lot of people with the word random.
Yay.
Yeah.
They're-
Unintentional, just fell into it.
By accident.
Yeah. Do you know, I remember very clearly, I think it was one of my first jobs was in theatre in education.
Right.
And we were doing a TIE and we were going round the north of England, weirdly in the olden days when it was called the Scottish Arts Council.
Right.
We were allowed to go over the border and go into the hinterland of the north of England. And I think we were in Middlesbrough.
Right.
And I had a hint that this TIE was going to come to an end abruptly. And I had a 10 pence piece in my pocket. And I brazenly went to a phone box because this was so long before smartphones. I went to a phone box and put my 10 pence in the beeping thing that you used to do and phoned Scottish Ballet because I knew they were looking for some musicians. And, you know, I only had like 2 minutes, 10 seconds to make a punt.
Wow.
And they said, we have no idea who you are. No, we don't need anybody. And they slammed the phone down. And you
That's
know,
nice. Welcome to the ballet world.
Yes.
but you know what? About 3 weeks later, they phoned back and said, actually, we're kind of needing someone to play class. And I had never even heard the word.
Right.
And
Can I
said,
ask what year this was? Can you remember what year it was?
It was the
Okay.
late 80s.
Okay.
Yeah. That's
smart.
before you were born.
Yeah, I was just in nappies.
Oh, that makes me feel so bad.
Thanks, Matt.
So there we are. So they phoned and I went into what was the setup was our first minister was called Donald Dewar, and he had the insight to set up the dance school of Scotland,
Yeah.
which was to help young dancers in Scotland become professional. And this position came up. And so I went into the Dance School of Scotland and played class with no knowledge whatsoever. And a lot of people kept saying, when exactly did you audition for this job? And I got away with it for a while. I can say that now, all these
Yeah.
years later. I
Yeah.
didn't even audition.
Oh, yes. Do you remember, what was it like, your first class? Do you remember
Yeah.
all the audition?
The non-audition. I
Yeah.
remember playing the first class and the teacher, I thought it was pretty cool. I thought I was being pretty cool, but the teacher said, I wonder if you could possibly play some tunes we would recognise. So that was a bit of that was a branding by fire. And so I did. And I think that's where it all kind of started to work a little bit.
And did you get this sort of instant excitement about going, actually, this could be quite exciting, sort of as a pianist accompanying dance and things? Was that something that you were aware of previously, or was this sort of your
I
first?
wasn't aware of it. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that opportunity. But when I was younger, I was into swimming. I was into sports in a big way, and I immediately could see a connection with sports and music, which like couldn't be better for me. And I think that was probably the connection at first, was the athleticism and the musicality of it, of that all combined. And I started to get a bit crazy about it, like enthusiasm beyond belief.
We all do, though, don't you? You sort of start, unless you know, sort of, Matt, I know you came at it differently, and we've talked about that, but sort of, as an outsider, as Kiko and I were coming into this, you sort of go, I don't really know what it is, but there's something about it that I really like, and then very quickly you always become like obsessive with it, don't you? It can takes over your life in a very strange and very weird way.
And finding each other, finding other musicians that are equally branded by this is exciting as well, because the public at large don't know about what goes on behind these closed doors. And probably worse than that, the music industry, do you call it an industry? The music profession doesn't really know either about what we're up to.
Playing the piano for ballet is not sort of a job that's really promoted either. I mean, I know we've got the Pianist for Dance course up here in Glasgow, which is amazing. We can talk about that later. But I remember being at school at Chet's, and basically your job opportunities as... Yeah, that's what I
I had no idea.
Basically, your job prospects there were you will be a concert pianist, you'll be a teacher, or possibly you might accompany other instrumentalists. And that was pretty much what it was. There was never any other sort of we weren't exposed to anything at the time in the late 90s of these, different ways that you can use your musicality and things. And I wish I'd have known about this a lot earlier. Then Kiko's pointed out the window. Sorry, there's animals over there. There's
a horse right by the window.
We don't get this when we're working in an interview in our flat in London. This is much. Sorry, going back. Yeah, it's not fully aware, and people don't know about it. Like you say, it's amazing because it's such a multifaceted role that you have to fulfill.
Oh, it is. Yeah, I kind of like to think about it as like you're playing for a silent orchestra when you're playing for class, because you've got a room full of musical people, but they just don't happen to play an instrument, but we're all working together musically and have different interpretations of what's going on. And so I guess maybe from the outsider's view, why on earth would you play for a silent orchestra? But that's essentially what we're doing, isn't it?
I know you've got amazing ways of looking at it. Like when I was lucky enough to go to the lecture that you gave in Rome back in 2019, and you were talking about accompanying classes. I hope I've got this right. Accompanying the silent moving image. Have I quoted you right on that?
Yeah, I started using a term for my own work. That I was a musician working with moving image, or working in moving image. And part of that was because I did study music for film down in Ealing Studios way back. But also because of the moving image, I just thought it was a great way of giving ourselves a kind of credence for what we do. Unfortunately, I'm sure a lot of us have been met similarly with, you play for ballet, or you play for dance. And it is the Cinderella of the opera world. It's so I guess I like that term, because I think it does say what we do, and it causes a slight raising of the eyebrow of interest. Oh, you play for moving image.
Yeah, what is the moving image? And that can encompass so many things. It can encompass ballet, it can encompass contemporary, just random improvisations, all sorts of stuff. It's not sort of strictly boxing being a ballet pianist or being a contemporary pianist or accompanying tap classes and things. I really like that set.
Yeah,
but I think I've quoted it a few times since. I might not have always quoted your name, but thank you, because I just think it's a great way of describing it.
You're welcome to it, yes. So and I'd like us all to use that. I think it's
let's
good.
Adopt it, like hashtag the moving image.
Yeah.
Is that the right hashtag? Who knows? I'm not good with hashtags. Anyway, so you're in Scotland. You find yourself at the Dance School of Scotland.
Yes.
And you were there for a bit, learning your craft, basically.
Yeah, I think I just did a couple of years, and I kind of probably in 2 years of intense, you know what it's like. Sometimes it's like 5 classes a day, and when you chalk that up over 2 years, you've played a lot of classes.
Yes.
And I think I reached what I call the black hole. I have no more ideas. And I kind of left dance for a year or two.
Bless you,
And,
Matt.
Thank you.
I kind of left the world of dance for a year or two and did some other things, and then came back into Scottish Ballet full time.
Mm-hmm.
So that opportunity would never have presented itself straight off, all the way back to my 10 pence in the telephone box. They would never take on somebody with no experience. But then when I auditioned like a year or two after I'd left the dance school and spread my wings a little bit more and come back into the company, the main company, that's where I really started learning my craft.
So you've got classes and then full-on repertoire calls and full calls and
Yeah,
stuff for
and
the company.
the very first day it was Petrushka.
Oh.
Wow.
Thanks.
My first one was Nutcracker.
I don't think I can play as a solo piano tune, not just like,
Do you know, it was the days of, you're absolutely right, Akiko. There was Trevor Walker was still at Scottish Ballet at that time, and Trevor guided me. Oh, I cannot be so grateful to Trevor for guiding me through that whole rehearsal process. I was so out my depth.
Yeah. And it's weird, like, the same way we talk about you can't really be prepared to go into a ballet class. You can read about it, but you learn by sort of doing it, don't you? You're getting guidance from your friend. The company rehearsals are exactly the same. You can be sitting at home and you can get that score, every single note of 150 pages in your fingers as soon as you get into there, and a rehearsal master will say to you, okay, we'll just go from the third développé.
Yeah.
Where you can be flicking through your page going, I don't even know which act you're in sometimes.
And if it's one of those calls, they want to do a bit of this solo, a bit of that duet, you're going back and forth, aren't you?
Yeah, do you know that's an interesting one about marking up scores? At first I felt obliged to know all the steps and write them dutifully in, and eventually I just did little stick men, and it really helped because then other musicians would go, I know what that. Draw a little square with a stick man on it, and we were much more at ease with. And you could write little gestures and things, but that was more helpful than writing the pas de chat. Like which one?
I think that's another one, isn't it? In terms of playing for ballet class, there's no right or wrong way to play a ballet class. In the same way, there's no right or wrong way to mark up a score. You've just got to go with whatever's helpful.
That's interesting. Yeah.
But then you get different rehearsal directors who'll come in and will refer to the same step or the same particular section by different names.
Yeah.
And that's what always used to confuse me, is because if you're like, hang on, that he calls this the 10 and somebody else calls it the développé, which what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Just different ways of referring to it, I suppose, isn't it? Like the Russian methodology and the more Western methodology and things.
But I like as a pianist marking, because it's like, if you read it through on the score, it's quite entertaining sometimes how they mark things.
Yeah, you can get some real funny ones, can't you? Some good comments.
Oh well, I mean, am I allowed to promote Michael Barnett's RAD songbook?
Yes.
Oh dear. it's the old syllabus, and Michael put lyrics to every exercise, which had various degrees of rudeness about them. And I tell you, you cannot play these pieces without hearing these lyrics.
It's true that you get that in full when you're playing full scores as well. There's a bit in Nutcracker, and can I say yes? I can. So a previous assistant music director of mine, the bit in Nutcracker, yum bum 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 ba ba ba, dee 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 dee. I was playing this call one day, and he just sneaks up behind me. He just goes, "Some are big and some are small. Ballet dancers love them all." And then off he walks.
and you hear it every day of your
13, 14 years. That's all I think of now in that particular bit of Nutcracker.
Oh yeah, it's that's lightweight compared to what the RAD song.
Yeah. So how long were you then sort of kicking around at Scottish for and going through the full scores with the company and things? You presumably you were on tour sort of nationwide and worldwide with the company.
Yeah, I was saying earlier that not only was I hit with Petrushka, but I was hit with a Japanese tour 2 weeks into joining the company. And I remember my friend saying, "That's amazing, this is the greatest thing." And for me, it was utterly terrifying, because I was on tour with 50, 60 people I didn't know in a very foreign land. But there we go. You you know, you make great friendships over time. I'm now wondering why I ended up in that main scale tour, because the reason I was brought in is because they decided they were going to do small scale touring. And for 2 years we did small, and I mean small, there was 6 dancers and myself and a director. And we literally toured the country for 2 years and got home perhaps on a Sunday, but not.
So pretty much
there was
living
a lot
out the
of mail
suitcase
behind
week
the
to
door.
week.
Yeah, that was hard. And then it kind of it flattened out a little bit, and so for another 2 years I stayed and played with the main company. But the touring was great in the sense that you were performing every night.
Yeah.
It was bad in the sense you didn't know what city you were in eventually a lot.
Oh,
Yeah.
That got difficult. I used to, this is how old I was. I remember Terry Wogan's show, and people that would be on Terry would be promoting their tour, you know, where they're going to go next. And I would watch this go, I haven't the slightest idea where I'll be tomorrow.
Yeah. And it's, you sort of write it in the diary, but you don't think about it because you're just focusing on that particular day or that week, aren't you?
Yeah.
And just sort of just going,
I mean,
going
you really
through
had
it.
to learn to live in the moment. There was, at first you would kind of wish it was Saturday night so you could get home for Sunday, and then it was a bad way to live your life. And eventually you went, right, okay, I'm going to live in the moment, and that's when it really worked.
Yeah.
It was the best of times then, and not that wishing your life away.
Yeah, because otherwise that's what you're doing. You're wishing your life away, just going, okay, I'll get home for a day. But then that day it just becomes a washing day almost, doesn't it? Or possibly, a bit of practice for whatever show's coming up the following week or something, just having a playthrough to get it in your fingers ready for the next full call.
Yeah.
It's hard work being a ballet pianist sometimes. These are all the things that you don't realise when you get into the profession.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody, the dancers also, had, a 6-day week. I'm not sure everybody knows it is a 6-day week. And that's hard. It takes its toll. So after 4 years of that intensive stuff, I went freelance and stayed kind of with Scottish Ballet in a much lesser role, but then got some contract work with BRB, and that made me see a whole new aspect of dance, a whole new world, going down to Birmingham and seeing what was going on. That was when Bentley was at the helm at that point.
So were you doing sort of like set repertoire down there you played for, or was it sort of Bentley's creations with original music, or did you end up sort of doing a bit of both when you were down there?
We did. It was the standard rep, really. I think the one that I remember was different was Carmina Burana. I remember doing Carmina Burana, which I loved doing. It was just a joy to be part of that.
So you were there for the creative process of that?
There's only a story I can't tell. So maybe I wasn't in the creative. I think it was
you were kicking about when it sort of happened.
Yeah, totally. I played in the rehearsals for that. Thanks very much, Chris.
So what was the change sort of for you from going to freelance? Because I remember when I went from being full-time employed to being freelance, and I sort of felt this almost like a weight being lifted a little bit, and sort of feeling, I can go and do different things and spread your wings a little bit at the time. And that, I think as a person and as a musician, that helped me grow because I approached my work differently then.
I think that's really necessary. And that's the point where I went to do my postgraduate study film, because of the stuff that I'd done with the dancers. I felt, why not try that on film and see how that works? And I learned so much on the computer. That was a whole new thing, was learning from the acoustic side of things to the digital. Moving across to film was a big deal for me. And then I realised I probably was pretty good at silent movie, because the silence were the actors were very actively moving. And I found it so difficult to write music for somebody walking down the street. Nothing really musically to say about that. And that's when I realised the skill of writing for film is absolutely incredible. Saying nothing but saying everything. So difficult.
And so things like silent movies as well, and how you accompany a silent movie. People who can do it amazingly well.
How do you even do that?
It's exactly the same as class.
Is it?
Oh yeah, you're just getting inside the actor's mind there.
You don't prepare for it.
I do.
Do you?
if I was
Because
playing,
we know a couple of others in London that do it,
Yeah.
don't we?
John Sweeney's
Yeah.
is
John
your
Sweeney's,
master.
yeah.
with
Yeah,
that.
he's gonna do an In
he's
Conversation as
fantastic.
well.
Oh, he's fantastic.
So you see them. You obviously see the film in front of you,
Mhm.
and then what?
Well, if it's in a cinema, you're allowed the day before to have a screening.
Ah.
Right.
So sometimes I'd sit in a cinema all on my own. And I'd take notes of the plot,
Yeah.
the goodie, the baddie.
Yeah.
So I would have a theme for a goodie and a baddie,
Yeah.
and a theme for a situation.
Okay.
And that's about it. Maybe I'd have come up with 6 ideas or something,
Yeah.
and they'd be on a scrap of a fag end of,
Yes.
on the
Cigarette
on the
box.
piano.
All the best
yeah.
ideas are
Yeah.
written on the back of a fag packet.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's or a
Packet.
cigarette packet for our American
Yeah.
listeners. Yeah.
Yeah.
And and then the film would play, and you would refer to these themes. That's how I do it anyway. Just to refer to the
Right.
themes
Mm.
as it comes up, so that you don't give the audience the wrong trigger. Because if you play the baddie
Yeah.
music for the goodie, then they're way
It's
in a different
completely
story.
confused,
So
yeah.
yeah, you're sort of informing their feelings about what they're seeing, aren't you, through the music?
Yeah,
Whether they're to feel frightened by the baddie or happy for the goodie and things like that.
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah.
you can you realize how much you influence
Yeah.
Yeah.
the room. You can really feel the audience going with an idea,
Wow.
or if you're really struggling, they're struggling with you.
Oh,
Yeah. And where
Is
were
it
we doing that in Scotland?
Yeah, the independent up here is the Glasgow Film Theatre,
Mm.
and there's a few independents round Scotland, and I remember taking the old Phantom of the Opera. Is that Lon Chaney? Lon Chaney.
Yeah.
I did that and took synthesizers and went on tour with all that. And then one of the cinemas put on the film, and it was a different edit. It
Right.
was much longer, maybe 20-25 minutes
God.
longer
Wow.
version. And I was playing thinking, I've never seen this. This is going on an awful long time.
So you're just playing the whole time.
Yeah.
You never stop.
You never stop.
Don't you have the moment just go
Wow.
blank? Oh,
You can't. You can hold a chord for a long
God.
time.
Never heard
Did you
of good
find yourself
arpeggios
in
and
vamps and
tremolendo?
stuff?
Of course.
Yeah.
So that's
Wow.
okay. So if we compare that to a ballet class, accompanying silent film, you can basically know. So with a ballet class, you're going to walk in with if it's a class master rehearsal director you've never played for before, you know a rough structure of a ballet class.
Yeah.
So you know the rough structure of the movie because you've sort of seen it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's it. So
that's good.
sort of relatively comparable for the two,
Yeah.
sort of. Although
Yeah,
worlds
I mean,
apart.
ballet's a bit more predictable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because by that's what I was saying. Like after 2 years, you know the shape of things to
Yeah.
Mm.
come, and that there's mighty few deviations from that. The expectation changes, but you know the pathway that you're going to go on for that hour and a half.
Yes.
It's amazing. I think that silent
Yeah.
movie thing is just wonderful.
Oh,
It's
Yeah.
not
give
something
it a
I've ever
try.
done.
It's
I'd be,
great fun.
because I'm not an improviser per se. I'll always start with a tune.
do you want to have a go?
Is that my 2021 challenge? To play for a silent movie?
Oh yes.
Get
Start
outside
with
my
shorts,
comfort
little-
zone.
Little 10-minute ones are great.
I'd have to have a watch first.
Remember at school, when I was saying actually, sorry, I've slightly misquoted my school training earlier because I was just thinking, we did have one workshop on silent movies, and I can't for the life of me remember who led this workshop because it's over 20 years ago. So I might have it written down somewhere in my notes. I'll see if I can find it when I next go to Manchester. And I remember being rubbish at it because my improvisation wasn't very good, but watching people doing it, like especially some of the older kids who were 17, 18, and going, actually, they quite had it. And there was a certain sort of style of playing as well, isn't there, that some people expect from a silent movie. Not honky-tonk tremolando, but this sort of very subtle way, like you're saying, between the goodies and the baddies and the different characters.
Yeah, and of course there's a whole modern way of playing now that even though the film hasn't aged and the characters have never aged and they cannot hear you,
Yeah.
you can kind of give them a different modern perspective, perhaps. And Buster Keaton is so modern of his day, so
Yeah.
that you can bring kind of more contemporary music to it, and it will make maybe the audience think, oh, this is not an old film.
It's not an
This
old
is-
film.
this
Yeah,
is-
it's sort of
This
keeping
is
it
really this could really
in date,
happen now.
almost.
Yeah.
Okay, so you finished at London Film School doing your, did you say degree? Sorry.
Yeah, I did my postgrad.
Postgrad there. And then you go back up to Scotland. Are you back to dance,
Yeah,
or you sort of like
I did.
here and there doing?
I didn't want to leave
bits?
London. I came back up to Glasgow. I didn't want to leave London, and London City Ballet,
Mm.
who
Yeah.
unfortunately no longer, phoned and said, "Oh, do you want to do Sleeping Beauty on tour?" So I jumped at the chance to get back to London,
Yeah.
which was great. But once that tour was finished, I thought it was time to come up and laugh about silly Glaswegian things.
Be able to afford, to go out for a meal and not have to remortgage off a property or something.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, but that was the best of times.
You can follow the podcast team by visiting the social media channels. Search for Ballet Piano Podcast on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter for up-to-date information and content about the podcast.
I want to get onto your book, The Art of Class,
Oh,
which I read. I haven't quite finished it yet, but I was reading it a few months ago, and it's an incredible insight for people to read about how, different ways of accompanying class, isn't it? And what your methodologies are behind it and your thoughts behind what you do sometimes, and the way of improvisations and things is.
Yeah. That took. The book is taken about 10 years to write because...
Can I just say that's
because
longer
I'm
than
so
Jonathan Still's PhD,
Oh,
Jonathan, if you're
yes,
listening. No, it's not. I'm joking.
It was one of these things you don't know. Nobody knows where to start.
Yeah.
But once you start, then it all made sense for myself. And trying to... Well, let me go back to the Dance School of Scotland. Very quickly, when I was playing for class, once I got the idea, a few months into this, very quickly, I felt like I had sort of X-ray eyes. I don't know if I can explain that. It's like when I was watching the dancers, even though they're young and they're being trained, I could see the what they needed musically to enhance. And you could really see, it's the same as the movies, you could really see how you could change the movement of the dancer by what you played.
Yeah.
And that could be detrimental if you played, a jazz tendu when the training didn't want jazz. They don't want that hip movement. So the implication of playing swing music is going to swing that hip. So I really was thinking about this, and then this incredible opportunity came by. Was it 2008, something like that, at Scottish Ballet, that they wanted to start a mentoring scheme where I could take on but at the time it was only 2 students could come. Now they were music students that were postgraduate, could come and learn the trade, and that was the trigger. Was how do I teach this? And I went back to my kind of X-ray eyes and thought, how do you make sense of that? When I think about the world of jazz, a lot of jazz players kind of suggest that if you don't have it in your soul, then you can't play jazz, and that's not true. And it's the same as if you can't see dance, then you can't play for dance. That's not true. You just need to be told what doors to open. So that was hard for me to try and find that, and that's where the book came from. So I guess I ended up on thinking about it as 3 intersecting crossword puzzles. How difficult is that? So and all of them seem to be in their own sense the New York Times cryptic crossword puzzle. So trying to undo these 3 levels for students was quite difficult for me, but I'll tell you it was difficult for them too. So it was a dancer that said to me many years ago that somebody new to dance, whether it's a musician or a young dancer, only sees the silhouette of their teacher. That's it. They see the silhouette. And that was the first thing that helped me get started writing. So I created a part of the book called Skin, Bone and Muscle. And it was to talk about how, as musicians, when we first look at dancers, we have no idea. So if they go up, we play up. They go down, we play down. So we're playing the silhouette of the movement. And that's really only skin deep music that we're playing, and it's not got any particular depth to it. It might be okay, and it works to a very basic level, and that's good. So that's where the student would start, at skin deep level. And very quickly you try and push them into the skeleton that's working in front of you to talk about the shape that the dancer's making. And I guess the rhythmic structure is where we would, if you go back to the skin deep level, that's your melody is rising and falling with not much knowledge. But then if you go into the skeletal shape of the dance, the anatomy of that, then our anatomy on the keyboard is to have the good rhythmic structure. And there's a lot of work to be done in rhythmic structure, an awful lot. And so then the next sequence would be the muscular definition that the professional dancer is looking for, the trainee dancer is looking for, and the professional dancer has achieved muscular perfection. And that's, for me, that's harmonic change. And that's the really, really difficult one, is the choice of harmony is so important to get inside the anatomy of the dancer and how they move. So that is crossword puzzle number 1. That's a year. It takes so long to try and explain how to look at the movement from the inside out, this X-ray look at it, not from the outside at all, but to try and understand how the muscle set works. And that might refer way back to me looking at sports. Yeah. Because I love the athleticism of the dancer and how music can interpret the shape that's happening in front of you. So then
Puzzle number 2
then extracted that rhythm problem. And I started a whole new section called time zones. And what I was realising, and we all realise this, is that dancers count for us naturally, and I call it natural counting, and it's been passed down the decades in the same rhythm patterns that they've learned from their teacher, and so it's passed through the decades. And these rhythm patterns get a little bit stuck. And we obligingly play back these rhythm patterns because perhaps we didn't know any better at first. Yeah. So what I did was take, in this time zone idea, this is crossword puzzle number 2, is to extract the tempo rather than the rhythm. So all I really want from the dance teacher is the tempo. Yeah. Guided by the rhythm. And then I'm going to deconstruct that rhythm into something completely different that might just be more suitable for the movement. But that's only with knowledge. Yeah. I mean, at first you follow what's been given, but over the years you go, I'm going to deconstruct this and then reconstruct it in a better way. So if I've got a new rhythm structure, the tempo of that is absolutely crucial to I always think about it as like an old-fashioned analog radio when you're tuning in. If it's off the station slightly, you're playing this music that's it's not
like white noise working. In there,
but when you get right onto that radio station, the sweet spot, that's where the music functions at its best, and then we have trouble when we're playing and we're shouted across to the second side is going to be faster. This is why we're already working in our time zone that's just perfect with the rhythm structure that we've created. And then that disruption is really difficult for us as musicians to start to reconstruct the deconstruction that we've made.
And then, I mean, you've got things as well that sort of go on, and it's like you say, just then, same example, we'll go to the second side and we'll do it a bit quicker, or somebody might say to you, we're going to go double speed, but we're not. What we're actually going to do is just increase the tempo by about 10% or 15%, you know, so it's just, it feels a lot quicker, you know, when you're doing it physically, but musically, we're just, you know, just switching it up ever so slightly, aren't we? Sometimes depends on the teacher, I suppose, what they class as being double speed and half the tempo and things. Yeah,
I mean, there's a great musician that I work with called Signe Jakobsdottir. She's a percussionist. I'm working she works in dance here in Glasgow, and she talks about playing the correct engine. And I'm thinking, that's so perfect. You're in 5th gear in your car, and you're thinking, this is just perfect. This is just rolling right. And then if there's a change of tempo, even if it's at 10%, you might have 6th gear to go to, but you might not, and you start to really stretch the engine into the wrong.
Yeah, you're revving too high.
You're revving too high. That's the right phrase. And so your music can become like a cartoon, or it can become like a dirge if it's the other way around. And so you have to rethink that music to function at the correct tempo.
Yeah.
So for me, the time zone has to be right, and that time zone functions with tempo and not necessarily with rhythm, because it's a question we ask ourselves a lot: which is more important,
Yeah.
the rhythm or the tempo?
I don't know what the answer is to that, actually. Yeah.
Well, for me, it's
it depends.
tempo.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose that could depend on what you're listening to in the class as well, doesn't it? And how well you've got this relationship. So with somebody that you're working with, if you work with the same teacher day in, day out, you sort of you can pick little bits from both of them, can't you? But I suppose, tempo, I mean, actually, because we've said that, haven't we, when we've had conversations with Mark and Kiko in the past about what you listen out for if it's a teacher that you're struggling with or a teacher that's brand new. It's like, okay, first thing we go for is how they mark it.
Yeah. You want to know how quick the exercise
tempo,
is.
accents, and then rhythm and melody.
Yeah.
Have I said that in the right order?
I think so. I think that's
so,
what I would go for.
We're all in agreement.
Yeah,
Look
absolutely.
at this. We have no ballet representation in the studio with us, and we're all in agreement. This is amazing. I love it.
If it's a teacher you've never worked with, the first thing you want to know is how quick is the exercise, how long is the exercise, and what rhythm or flavour that we said that before. What are they going for? And then the extras, melody, accent. If you can pick out accent in the exercise, but tempo is very important.
Yeah, more important than we think.
Because that's the basis of how they're setting the exercise, though, isn't it? How a teacher is setting an exercise, whatever the level is. They've got their specific sweet spot for a tempo for what they're trying to achieve that day. Or if you're at a company, depending on how far through the week or how far through the tour you're at and things like that, you can never just take it as your players are going to be a relatively medium 3 because depending on where you're at, it could be quicker or slower.
Yeah. It's so funny, the first warm-up exercise facing the bar, some teachers want it deathly slow.
Yeah.
And some teachers want it as brighter than you
Real
want to
bright,
play it.
yeah.
And that's just the first warm-up exercise. And you think, I've got this, I'll just play on the slower side than what I want to. And some teacher might just want nice
and they're giving
bright.
you the speed ups and things.
Yeah. So
I think warm-up for me, I mean, we said it right in the very first episode when we talked about the class series, can be one of the trickiest exercises to play, especially if you're in with a new company or a new set of students and a new teacher, or even in a new studio with a new piano or something like that. There's so many different variables that are going to affect how you play and then affect your own perception of what you were just talking about, Karen, in the crossword puzzle as well, isn't there? There's so many variables.
Yeah, I guess the one variable that's not variable is gravity.
Yeah.
Because you're right, the temperature of the room, what we've eaten, the emotional feel of what's happening.
Have you had enough
today?
sleep the night before?
There's so many variables, so that's all kind of crashing in there, and that's good because that's what live performance is all about. Is feeling that, having a sensitivity to what that might be, but the only thing that is actually regular is gravity.
Yeah.
it's the constant, isn't it?
It's the
Gravity
one
is
thing.
constantly always there.
What is it my mother used to say? My grandmother, sorry. Times, tide and trains wait for no man.
Times, tides and trains. Oh, that's good.
Yeah. She was a wise lady, my grandma.
Oh.
So we're halfway through the second book now, are we?
Yes. We're,
And then,
we're actually through our second crossword puzzle, and the third one becomes the Rubik's Cube of difficulty.
can I just put it out that I'm absolutely crap at Rubik's Cubes. I can't do them.
Because you don't have patience for that.
No, I know.
Do you know? Oh,
I'm not good with a Rubik's Cube.
I'm not good at crossword puzzles. Oh no. Not good at that. So if we think about the third layer of this crossword puzzle, and so that's why I'm kind of going, it's a Rubik's Cube now, because it's like 3 upon 3 upon 3.
Yeah.
And the combinations that we're now starting to pull in are so manifold. There's so much to think about. You're either going to just spontaneously combust,
which some people have done in the past, pretty much, haven't they? Or metaphorically spontaneously combusted. I'll be honest, I've cried once in a ballet studio. That was my spontaneous combusting. Sorry, I've digressed.
No. So that there needed to be. This is when I'm trying to think through what are the principles of what we do, not the tunes we play or anything. It's the principles of what how we react as musicians to movement. So I needed to find another layer, and it needed to be something practical and also something that touched on the emotional side of things as well.
Yeah. Because
you could talk about notes and melody to the end of the earth, but you aren't talking about the content, the emotional content. So I came up with 6 principles of movement that coincided with music verbally. And then I thought, then that needed to be inside a little box called I'm going to say perfection. No, I'm going to call it, let's call it perfection.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking for. And if you don't strive for that, then all the other 6 principles I'm going to now reveal, they fall to bits unless you become perfect at every intention that you have.
Yeah.
So the 6 principles now, I'm hoping I'm going to remember them all in order here.
Listeners, Karen doesn't have cue cards with her. This is all from memory.
This is,
so I don't forget them all.
Oh, here she is.
Oh, she does prepared.
Yeah, I know. It's just so I wouldn't forget. Oh yeah, no. So my box was called Precision. Yeah.
Right.
So let's call
Precision. Yeah.
Let's call it Precision. And so the first principle was tension and release, and that works with our harmonic knowledge on the keyboard or as a musician. It also works with the muscular movement of the dancer. But tension's not a great word to use for dance, but let's use that in the world of music.
Yeah.
Is good. And then we moved into lift, and then line, and then breadth, and drive, which is to do with the engine, and then support. So that was the words that seemed to crop up a lot in dance class that were being portrayed to us from the dance studio. Is what the dancer needed. And I was thinking, wow, that's what we need as well.
Yeah.
But we need to figure out what does that what does lift exactly mean it musically? And that's one of the more difficult ones to achieve. So combined with all the other aspects of the other crossword puzzles, this one is the one that makes it all happen in class. Is you have to have that intersection of the anatomy of your music working with the anatomy of the dancer.
Yeah, it's that sort of symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, and I really wanted to use the same words that were appearing in the studio, and bring them to the. If I was teaching or mentoring, I wanted to bring these words in to say, so if somebody wants more lift, what does that mean?
Yeah, and how can you do it musically? How can you how can you support that musically? How can you deliver it?
Yeah, and it's not always it's not what you expect sometimes, is all I'm saying. For any of these principles, what you might expect, drive, for instance, to be noisy.
Yeah.
And actually drive can be like a really, really intensely quiet piece of music, but still driving the dancer forward. And so these intentions are really paramount to being able to get inside what's needed in class. But you'll have noticed that not once have I ever mentioned a tune or anything.
Yeah.
So that's very difficult, is to try and find the intention behind music, so that you can recognize it and then produce it.
Yeah.
So it was a thing that for young musicians coming in to play, a lot of times, I'm sure we've all done this, is come and sit and listen to someone that can do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not that helpful. It's like watching somebody swimming.
Yeah.
Because they go, that sounds quite easy.
Because you can listen to somebody play "I Dreamed a Dream" from Les Mis on 3/4 for a play, and it'll be beautiful and have this magical moment in the studio.
Yeah.
So then you go, okay, well that works because it worked
That
for
must
Mr. X, so I'll do it. And then it doesn't work for you for whatever the reason is. Is it because of the way you're playing it, the key that you're playing it in, the tempo that you're playing it in, the fact that the teacher doesn't like Les Mis, or there's so many,
That's
there's so
really
many
important.
different. Or is it? And I remember somebody saying to me, "You've got to play your music as you." you don't play the music like I play it, because then you're not being true to yourself.
Yeah.
You've got to pick your repertoire that means something to you, either because you love it, because it means something to you sentimentally, because you've heard somebody else do it and you want to play it. So you go away, you know, in the olden days where, you know, before we had access to Scribd and all those amazing resources that we have now, you know, you'd have to listen to it and transcribe it or something like that, or sing it to somebody because you didn't know what the title of the tune was. And then you start to take control of your own big body of repertoire, don't you? And how you play it.
Yeah. I was interesting. You were talking about walking past the studio and knowing instantly who's playing without even looking in.
Yeah.
And having your own voice is so important. It is, you know, that you're recognised as a unique musician, that you're not producing other people's ideas and things. So I guess what, you know, there's a kind of universal truth in a lot of music that follows what goes on in dance, and the rises and falls and harmonic changes seem to match a lot of what you see visually in the class. And I kind of go, that must be a bit of a universal truth. And I think that's great. But pushing a what is it, a square into a round hole, you know, sometimes
square peg into a round hole.
Into a round hole, sometimes you can really go too far, and the music isn't functioning properly because you're trying to make it work somewhere. It doesn't.
You bent it too far.
You've bent it too far, and it's not really functioning at its best. So if you still have a good idea that shape of that is right, I kind of say to other musicians, you think about it as like inspired by, rather than you take an idea and mold it much more to your own character and your own personality musically, so you're not really pushing something it's not going so well.
I think there's something honest though about playing the repertoire, playing any repertoire, be it, you know, ballet rep, classical rep, through to sort of MT and pop. You're playing something how it means to you. So therefore you're effectively wearing your heart on your sleeve in every class that you play, aren't you? Because you're playing as you. You're not sort of playing I'm not playing a ballet class as Matt Gregory. I'm playing my ballet class as Chris Hobson with my repertoire, the same way that you might play. Because we all play individually, and it's a very personal experience, important. Then, isn't it?
I think it's hugely important is for, you know, everyone to hear what we can contribute from 360 degrees. You know, like it's always a surprise to me when I listen to another musician, it's go, what? I would never have thought that.
I always think that.
Yeah, I've never thought of playing, you know, I play this tune, but I've never thought of twisting it like that.
And then it's going to go on to Chris's next CD.
No, it's not.
Well, how many times you stole mine?
I don't steal anything from you because we're married. We share everything equally. We signed a contract to say that we share.
We share
even our tunes.
We share virtually everything now.
Because we recently did our versions of Schindler's List, didn't we?
We did.
And then when I watched you record it, I was like, I'd love to be able to play it like a Kiko.
Really? Yours was amazing.
They're just both with the same phrasing, you know, the way we
same,
arrange that piece of music, because it isn't square. We arrange it roughly the same way, but we play it so differently.
Yeah.
I do little different ostinato figures in the left hand,
Yeah.
and you play it like it's Chopin.
And then we're talking about you playing the Danny Boy beautifully, and it was completely different to how we play, wasn't it?
Yeah, we've got 3 different versions of Danny Boy when we've actually sat down and looked. It's really weird.
Yeah.
But it's only actually since recording this podcast that we've started to like sort of share things with each other, particularly how we play.
Really learned a lot from each other.
For quite a few years, but it's, I think because of this that we said, well, how do you play that? Okay, because we could put this on our website. Teeth back in, love. On our website and say, okay, right, well, this is how we all arrange our repertoire differently.
Or sometimes ballet teacher like mark some exercise to the tune that you never think that.
Yeah.
And then, they hear this tune this way, like, and then I just learn something sometimes.
You know, for me with that, I get a problem with, and it goes back to what you were saying, Karen, about the tempo, is teacher marks them so you hear them singing, whatever it happens to be, and then so you effectively you're set up and ready to go. You're going, okay, right, I've got this worked out. It's got 16 counts in the middle. It goes on to the second side. It's exactly, you've got the whole structure worked out in your head, and you go, but I want to have it, instead of going 1 and 2, I want to have it 1 and 2. And then instantly you've got to nick your phrase, Matt. You've got to turn on a dime and switch it around within nanoseconds
hugely problematic.
and get ready to go.
Yeah.
And I think when you started off as a pianist, that's so difficult. I remember getting really flummoxed by that because sort of going, well, this is what they've said at the start. Why don't they want it 2 minutes later?
I know.
And it comes a lot with that. That just comes with experience and understanding of what you're accompanying and how the different teachers work, doesn't it?
Oh, it's funny you saying that. I remember asking a friend of mine, he's an animator, and I said, could you make an animation of just like 5 seconds of somebody sitting at the piano having had something marked?
Yeah.
And then it changed. Is like as the animation of somebody's hands going to the keyboard, a bubble with all the process. What key am I going to play in? What speed is it? No, I can't do that. Is it 3/4? Is it 2/4? 6/8? And all that conversation as your hands are just going towards the keyboard.
You have so many thoughts from your hands, not at the keyboard to at the keyboard. You really do, don't you?
Do you remember
lots of thoughts.
Akiko, when Dina, am I going to say her name right? Dina Bjorn.
Yeah.
Who's amazing.
She's amazing.
She's getting on a little bit now, isn't she? But she's absolutely incredible. And I'd never played for her before, so she came in and she was doing Bournonville stuff with the students at this school where we work. And she's great, but she knows everything. So I was like, oh my gosh, this lady knows everything.
She can play piano. Her mom, I think, was a pianist.
Her mum was a concert pianist.
So she literally come to the piano and then say, play here.
We'll just go from here to here and we'll not bother with this bit. And then
I don't need to think. You just go.
Point at the score.
Yes. So she knows the score. She reads the music. And then randomly, halfway through the first time I played, she's like, oh, my mother was a concert pianist. I was looking at it, I was like, oh my God, please just the ground swallow me up now because I really hope I'm giving this lady what she wants. I mean, and she was incredible. She's so nice. There was nothing pretentious about her in the slightest. She's an absolute dream to play for, isn't she?
Easy to work
I
with.
say so they have the Bournonville class, which she goes around and teaches, and then randomly she won't be doing stuff from Bournonville, say, at the bar. So I have to say to her, sorry, is it Wednesday's class or Thursday's class you're taking this exercise from? No, darling, it's a free class. Just be free.
Really sweet. Oh, she's so sweet.
It's getting a little license, isn't it?
Yeah. But she supports you. She makes you feel so at ease. When she says to you, be free, just give us something that you like, you feel completely at ease to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes, if a teacher just gives you half the information, you go, oh, be free. It's like, are you saying that because you don't know what you want? Or are you actually giving me license to open up what I think I want to play for this?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, it's one of these things. If ever a dancer says to you, maybe they're not quite understanding the situation, but they often would say, maybe contemporary more than anything, just play anything.
I did.
You're saying there. And, and I know it's meant with the best of intention, but that's different from just be free. Just play anything is Nelly the elephant then.
You play whatever.
It's what I need is place, if you're given a trigger of some sort, play something that makes me feel warm and cozy. I'm okay with that. Or icy or something. Don't tell me just play anything because I'll sit on the keyboard.
Contemporary teacher, and she'd quite often do stuff without counts, which is fine. This is right back in the day. And she was like, but okay, Chris, so we're going to do this. There isn't really any counts to this. Oh, that's fine. So what I'd like, so what I would like to happen is, you're going to be led by the dancers, but also the dancers are going to be led by you.
How?
And I don't know what you want from me here. Do I just sort of let's put the sustain pedal down? I'll just play a low E. Leave that for 20 minutes or something. It's a weird. And then the same teacher would come in. So I tried to do one just with my left hand once, and it was very sparse. She's like, we have something that's a little bit fuller, please. But what do you mean fuller? It doesn't, do you want something? And this was, no, it wasn't last week. This was a long time ago. Somebody said, oh, just, fuller, but with more breath.
Oh, gosh.
I don't know what you're, I think that I'm
not having a
I'm not in there with that. Like for me, like the Cunningham and the Graham stuff, I really like playing for because it's very structured. You know where you're going with it. All right, the counts can be a bit weird, like an 8-2, an 8-4, an 8-4, and whatever. But
you've got
a structure that you can work with and you can plan things out. Whereas this just sort of just be led is not. I think for me as a musician, that's not where my strengths lie.
I loved your ballet teacher voice.
Thank you.
Do that again.
No, it's generic. Just shut up. It's generic ballet teacher voice.
But didn't you have a story, Akiko, where somebody said, oh, just play anything? And as soon as you started playing, oh, no, I don't want that.
No, but you said anything.
Yeah. You don't know what I'm going to play.
Oh, yeah, just play the introduction and they don't want this one. It's
Yeah.
like, I haven't played the tune
Yeah,
yet.
I don't know what I'm going to play yet. It's an improvisation.
It's impossible.
I know. It's, funny.
But then the fulfillment that you get, like say, when this whole puzzle, coming back to the
Yeah.
art class, when this puzzle comes back to when almost like when you complete this puzzle, when you complete your Rubik's Cube or you do,
Yeah.
your crosswords are done. And it's like, it's when the stars align, isn't it? It's when you are
Oh, yeah.
the
It's
happiest
the
in the
best.
studio, and you get this feeling that you can't, I don't know, it's difficult to put into words, isn't it? Because it's not, it's a mixture of sort of happiness, elation, just a plethora of emotions.
Do you know,
that
it's so funny you saying that. I remember I was working with a percussion player, and that's so wonderful to have two musicians in there. It's so
Yeah.
rare. But it was a kind of summer festival thing. So it was such a luxury to have two of us playing. And I remember a total out of body experience. It was going so well.
Yeah.
And I was playing, and I remember thinking, I was looking from the top of the room down on this.
Yeah.
It was really out of body. And I remember thinking, that's amazing. I wish I could do that.
No, I mean, and they do happen, don't they? They can sometimes be few and far between, these experiences, but when they happen, it's like
'cause that was
you come out and you're saying to your loved one, you're saying to your colleagues, you're saying to everybody, you're just like, what I've just done is the reason why I get up and I go into the studio, because it just sort of like, it reignites your passion. It lights your fire again, doesn't it? And it's so, when it happens,
when
it's
it
so
works.
special. It takes that great class that we all do all the time, and it just takes it up to that Michelin star level,
Yeah.
almost,
That's
or that
a
2
great
Michelin
place.
star restaurant level.
I just love
Yeah.
being able to use music to help the dancer achieve their technique better, or their artistry, or their phrasing, or their
Yeah.
use of port de bras, because the music has enabled that. It's when it all comes together.
it's
Whether
a
the
little bit of
exercise is
magic.
perfectly set, all of the vocabulary of the exercise is just perfect. The dancers just get it and understand it, and then the music just brings both of those things together.
And then to top it off, if you've got the most amazing relationship with the teacher as well.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
great communication
Oh,
where you got the eye
yes.
contact
Like kind of
with
psychic
the
Yeah,
thing going
yeah.
on. It's great.
and it just
When
takes
the
a little
teacher-
look to know.
When the teacher knows what you can bring as a musician,
Yeah.
they can really use that, and you can trust that they're a really good teacher and their exercises are going to be absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
You just, each of you know what you're going to bring to this.
Yes.
And it just makes a class so wonderful for the dancers. And the dancers have absolute faith in the music and the teacher.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing like
We
it.
should call this
is there?
podcast Why We Do What We Do. We're all sitting here now professing our love for our job.
If you're enjoying this episode, then why not visit the website balletpianopodcast.com and join the mailing list. You can access past episodes, transcripts, music playlists, and so much more. It will ensure you never miss new episodes or updates. That's balletpianopodcast.com.
We're going to wrap up, but we've got a couple of quick hit questions for you.
Yeah.
I'm nervous.
No, don't be nervous.
Don't be.
So, quick hit fire questions.
Number one, what is your absolute career highlight? Have a minute. It's not that quick fire.
That's a difficult first question, actually,
Yeah.
thinking about it, isn't it?
Yeah. Is it anything that just sticks out from your
Do you-
career?
This is the weirdest thing. Why did playing for Michael Ball come to?
Oh, tell us.
I thought it was just like one sentence or one word.
You can
I'll have to
elaborate.
tell you more, or maybe I'll choose something else.
Okay, the first thing that came to your head was playing for Michael Ball.
What was
for
that,
Michael
what's that
Ball.
story?
Oh, you know, all these pops orchestra stuff
Yeah.
that does the tours, you
Oh.
know, and so quite often, you know, we pick up. I don't know. It seems to be a lot of ballet musicians up here end up playing the pops
Yeah.
orchestra
Oh,
stuff,
yeah.
and we did an Anton and Erin, and then we did a Michael Ball and things, and
Right.
they are just so joyous because
I
you get the
bet.
music an hour before, and that's really
Yeah.
nerve wracking.
Oh.
And then you're like, oh, this is fantastic. And then these famous people come on, and it's just a joy.
I remember doing one of the sort of awful proms in the park style gigs, but not a BBC proms in the park, you know, just sort of like the scratch orchestras put together.
Yeah.
And it was a great gig when we used to do it. And Wyn Evans, Mr. Go Compare. So if you're
Oh.
if you're not from the UK, just Google Wyn Evans Go Compare. So he was singing.
Have you seen the new advert?
And he's a great singer. He's brilliant. But the conductor was taking the mick out of him coming on. He's like, and here's the Go Compare man. So I had a selfie with him backstage. And I was like, oh, this is hilarious. And I showed my dad the next day. I was like, look who this is. He's like, I don't know. And I realized because he wasn't dressed up as the Go Compare man. So when he's
in the new advert, he puts the eyebrows and moustache on.
And you go, oh, now I know you.
And this episode's sponsored by Go Compare.
Number 2, what advice do you have for your 18-year-old self?
Oh.
If you could go back and give your 18-year-old self some advice.
Yes. Read more, learn more, just more. I think I spent too much time in the pub.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Number 3, if you weren't a dance musician or involved in dance, what would you have been?
A photographer.
Oh,
I know nothing about photography, but that's what I really want to do.
Yeah.
do you do it as a hobby?
No. I really appreciate it.
What did you have for breakfast this morning?
Oh, I'm on this silly diet just now.
Oh,
I'm on sugar-free, gluten-free, everything free. So it went like this: a piece of grapefruit and hot water and lemon.
Detox.
Very nice. Healthy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very kind.
Grapefruits are nice.
Yeah.
I like
I love
grapefruit.
grapefruit.
I thought you were going to say fresh air then when you said I'm on this free
Fresh air, yeah.
And our last one, if you won the lottery tomorrow, what's the first thing you're doing?
I'm going to. Oh, that's good. Well, I'd like to give it away.
Oh.
Everything.
Yes, mostly. Keep some.
Keeping up to the competition.
Would you give some to the Ballet Piano podcast?
I would donate the proceedings to the Ballet Piano podcast.
Oh, this episode is sponsored by Karen MacIver.
Oh, wow.
So before we say thank you, we just need to say you can buy the Art of Class book. I know I bought it from Apple. Is it I can't remember if it's called the bookstore or the iBook store.
Oh yeah, Apple.
From
Amazon.
Apple.
Amazon's probably easier.
Amazon's got it as well. So that's The Art of Class by Karen MacIver.
So if you love our
thank you.
podcast, buy Karen's book.
Oh,
Do
thank
it.
you very
Yes.
much.
Yeah, you have to.
It's a bit of fun. It's an ebook, so it's got moving images in it and lots of silly things to do in it.
It's great.
Colouring
Yeah.
in.
Well, listen, Karen, thank you so much for
I'm
hosting
so
us in your piano
happy.
shed. It's been great. Thank you so
really
much.
appreciate
You're very
it.
welcome.